Hey, welcome. Thank you all for joining us today for April's Tech Accelerator webinar. Our presentation topic this month is tools for organization and daily planning. This session is being recorded, and the video will include picture-in-picture ASL translation as well as a full transcript. You'll be able to access that video on our website at disabilities.temple.edu, and I will put that link in the chat for everyone as well. That website is also where you can register for future webinars. So TechOwl has a wonderful series of 18 topics running from July 2024 to December 2025. And each will be held on the third Thursday of the month and is offered at 2 times, at 12 noon and at 4 p.m. This series is part of the Tech Accelerator program. This is an initiative funded by the Office of Developmental Programs and the Office of Long-Term Living here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is made possible by funding from the American Rescue Plan Act. The Pennsylvania Tech Accelerator project includes 5 major focus areas: training and resources to build capacity for stakeholders, a readiness evaluation to develop tools for successful adoption of remote supports and assistive tech, a statewide assessment to plan and benchmark a technology for systems change, a provider survey to assess technology awareness and resources among providers, and finally 2 technology summits, which were live events hosted in Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh back in March. You can learn more about all of these fantastic projects on our website at that link, disabilities.temple.edu, in the chat. Okay, so let's move on to tonight's subject: supporting executive function at home and at work. For anyone who is joining us for the first time, welcome. I am so excited to have you here. My name is Caitlin, and I am an assistive technology professional at TechOwl. So that means my job is to help people of all ages and disabilities find tools to make their lives easier, safer, or more independent. And I'm excited to have some people from different states joining us today. So I do want to let you know that TechOwl is a Pennsylvania program, and we are able to offer one-to-one demonstrations and to lend devices out to people who live in Pennsylvania. So if you happen to live in a different state, or if you have family members or people that you support who live in a different state, then I do encourage you to check out your local Assistive Technology Act program, because they might be able to provide more training or hands-on experience with some of the tools that we talk about today. So you can find a directory for the contact information of those programs at at3center.net/state programs. That link is in the chat for you as well. And all this information will be available on handouts in a follow-up email. And finally, before we begin, I just want to encourage everyone to make the most of our time together today by honoring each other's access needs. So you are free and encouraged to move around, stim, take breaks, do whatever it is you need to do. I myself am certainly utilizing fidgets, and I might need a water break at some point here. But I do ask that anyone who is not speaking or signing, please keep their cameras off tonight to help reduce visual clutter and to help our participants focus on the slides and the interpreters as needed. Do feel free to utilize the raise hand button if you have something you want to say, or to put any questions and comments in the chat box. If I don't see it right away, I will certainly come back to it at the end during Q&A time. So at the end of our time together today, what do I want you to be able to walk away with? So our objectives for learning are to be able to describe 3 skills related to executive function, to compare the features of built-in calendar tools to third-party apps. And I'm going to show lots of examples, but my goal isn't to endorse or advertise specific products, although I do hope that I can introduce you to something new that might be worth exploring. More importantly, we're looking at features, at what questions you might want to ask yourself when making decisions about your planning tools. So those concepts are what I want you to take away today, more than the brand names or specific products. Finally, our third objective is to identify 2 ways to incorporate environmental cues into your routines. So we'll be talking about using our senses of vision and hearing, but this could also be applied to your sense of touch. Maybe you have a watch that vibrates every hour to help you feel the passage of time, or even your sense of smell. So the scent of coffee brewing, what gets you up in the morning, maybe. What is executive function? So I like to think of executive function as being the management system of the brain. It's like there's a little hamster up there wearing a power suit in my frontal lobe, and he is responsible for self-control, organization, and flexible thinking. So this includes skills like regulating emotions and attention, keeping track of what you're doing, following multi-step directions, prioritizing information, transitioning from one activity to another, and considering multiple perspectives or taking multiple pieces of information into account when you're making a decision. We often hear about the flip side of executive function, meaning executive dysfunction. So challenges in this area can be especially common for folks with ADHD or other disabilities. And that might show up as forgetting to turn in homework or forgetting to pay bills. Maybe you notice a lot of emotional dysregulation, so coping with anger or frustration over difficult tasks. And then again, for anyone who's working with teens or young adults, I also want to remind us that the frontal lobe of our brains are still developing into our mid-20s. So even if you don't have a disability or any individual challenges, your executive function skills won't peak until your 30s. And then they're going to start declining again as we age. So this topic and these tools are really for everyone. Some strategies. How do we support executive function? So we're going to focus on 3 areas of strategy today, and those are building routines, breaking tasks into smaller chunks, and creating visual reminders. So we're going to look at technology and tools that can help us do all 3 of those things. Now that we've defined what executive function is, can you think of some examples of tools and technology that support your organizational and planning skills? Feel free to put examples in the chat. Some examples that I've thought up to get us started are Post-it notes, wall calendars, using the built-in features on your smartphone like timers or navigation maps, using reminders from a voice assistant like Siri or Alexa. Or maybe we use the integrated calendar features from our email providers, like we use a Google Calendar on our phone or our desktop. Feel free to share your own examples in the chat, and there's no right or wrong answer here. Just like with any form of assistive technology, my goal as a professional is to match the right tools to a person's needs. It can be low tech or high tech. Yes, we have some people who use reminders on the laptop, phone, and iPad, Outlook calendar, Apple Watch, timers, Post-it notes. Great examples. Thank you, guys. So some high-tech things, some low-tech things. And this decision-making process starts just by looking at an individual's abilities and challenges, and then looking at what tasks it is that that person needs to do and what environments they'll be working and living in. So there are going to be some tools that are really appropriate for using at home, but might not be able to go with you out into the community. Or maybe they're not appropriate to be able to set up at work or at school. So we're really considering all 3 of those factors: the person, their tasks or activities, and the environment. I did see a couple people say that they use some of those built-in tools during their daily life. So here's one example of tools that are associated with whatever devices or services that you already have access to. This might include an email provider like Google or Microsoft. And these platforms can be a great choice if you want to collaborate with other people in your school or in your workplace. If you need the ability to toggle multiple calendars in or out of view during the day. and if you'd like to manage your to-do list in the same software that you use for emails or for file storage. So in the screenshot on the right here, I have a split view of a Google Calendar alongside the Google Platform's task list feature. And when I look at this picture, a couple techniques stand out to me. So I see first that the person has color coding on their calendar. Maybe that represents different categories of activity for them. I also see that they've used subtasks on their to-do list. So the example of lunch with clients, it's got 3 smaller checkboxes under there with the steps that are needed to complete that task. So you need to pick out a restaurant, you need to make reservations, you need to send invitations. Those are all some features in Google, and here are some similar, the same features in a Microsoft platform. Similar capabilities. In this view, you see symbols along the left column here. So we have tabs for email, for calendar, for contacts, to-do lists, and files. And I find it helpful to have all of these features on one platform because a lot of my to-do list involves things like sending emails to people or creating files. There are also a lot of tasks that I do repetitively, such as submitting reports. So Microsoft makes it easy for me to stay on top of those things by scheduling repeating tasks. Example of how to do that is I just click the Add Task icon, and then I can, for example, type in Call Nana, and there's drop-down menus that let me set a due date, set a reminder notification if I'd like that, and then say how often that activity should repeat. So if this is something I want to do once every week, I can say repeat weekly, and now that task will automatically be filled in on my to-do list every single week. So when I check it off for this week, it's going to just move itself to next week's list. Now, this platform is pretty wordy. There's a lot of text on the screen. Same thing with Google. And that's not going to be accessible or motivating to everyone. So let's look at some examples of visual planning apps. These type of apps could be a good choice if you want to be able to see how long an activity will take, or if you need help from artificial intelligence from the computer to break tasks into smaller steps. Also might be a good choice just for anyone who could benefit from using icons, using color coding and other visual cues that could help increase your understanding and your engagement. The screenshot on the right is from an app called Timu, and you can see a visual timer, which is a colored ring around the symbol for the current activity, and the color advances to complete the ring as time passes. And timers can be super helpful both for staying on task and even for task initiation. So some people might find it less overwhelming to commit to, I'm going to work on this for 20 minutes, rather than I need to complete this task. In this example, it looks like they're using the timer to stay on track with a morning routine. So there's a checklist below that has items like brush teeth, feed the dog, make coffee, which all fall into the same block of time. And you can check the individual tasks off as you go, and that's an assist for both your memory and your motivation, again, with being able to see your progress. This slide has links to 3 examples of similar apps, Timu, ThruDay, and Structured. And they were all designed specifically with neurodivergent users in mind. So all of these apps are free to download, but each of them have some free features and some paid features. The artificial intelligence feature specifically is a paid feature. You can also get maybe extra color palettes or different icons if you subscribe, and using different integration features to import calendars and reminders from multiple accounts. So those are the kinds of functions that you might need to pay for. But the free versions are completely functional. And if you find that you really like them, then definitely look at the payment options because it's typically going to be much cheaper to pay up front for a lifetime or a yearly subscription. For example, the Structured app is $5 per month, or you can pay just $15 for the whole year. So definitely look at those kinds of things if you're deciding to pursue some of these apps. Here's one example of the Structured Daily Planner app. So I've copied a screenshot from an iPhone here. I should also mention that all of these softwares come in web browser versions for your computer, as well as apps for your phone or tablet. But in this screenshot, we see a vertical timeline of the person's day with different colorful symbols, and a few features that stand out to me about how they're using this app. I noticed that the horizontal bar at the top has a to-do list. So these are items that aren't tied to a specific time of the day. And then for other activities, I see that the size of the bar corresponds to the length of the activity. So this creates a really nice timeline effect that helps you understand a 15-minute commitment versus a 90-minute commitment. One last thing I noticed here is that some of the activities expand into checklists when you click on them, so that you can see the steps involved in completing that task. Okay, what if you need additional features to support your routines? For example, audio narration, or maybe video modeling to coach you through a task. There are apps for that too. So on this slide, I have a screenshot of an app called Visual Schedule Planner by Good Karma Applications. It's open right now to the daily view. So there are activities broken into 3 columns for morning, afternoon, and evening. And some of the activities, like brush teeth, have a place to click to open a checklist of the steps to complete that task. I see other activities, like the chores block, have an icon to click to watch a video of that task being completed. So those are some great extra support tools. These 2 examples, the ChoiceWorks Calendar or the Visual Schedule Planner, are paid apps. One of them is $6 and one of them is $15. So those are one-time purchases, not a subscription, so not too expensive. But what I want everyone to keep in mind is that we have these apps available to borrow for free on an iPad from TechOwl's Lending Library. If you're in Pennsylvania, then that can be a great opportunity to see if it's a good fit for you before you spend your own money on it. And I'll give you some more information about using the library services towards the end of the presentation. But you would just be adding the iPad itself to your library cart, and then in a notes field, writing in the names of which apps you'd like to try. All right, that was a lot of information about software. I'm gonna pause for one moment to see if we have any questions so far in the chat. So we've covered some digital platforms for viewing your schedule, and now I want to take a step back and make some connections with other parts of our environment, non-digitally. Whether you're using an app or a wall calendar, there are ways we can incorporate more of our senses into building routines. Let's look at how things like lights or music and other visual and tangible cues in our home and our workspace can support our daily tasks and transitions. And I should clarify that I'm not just talking about a sensory diet or self-regulation tools in kind of the broader sense. What I'm looking for here are associations and automations. So I had a high school teacher who swore by the notion that sensory associations strengthen memory. She would tell us to chew gum while we studied for a test, for example, with the idea that the flavor of the gum would become associated not only with the act of focusing, but also with the retrieval of the specific content we were studying. So then, bring gum to the exam, perform more efficiently because your brain is primed by the flavor to access that information. I have no idea if that is a scientifically verified strategy. And ultimately, it didn't matter because none of the other teachers in the school allowed gum or food in class. But I do know that sensory cues help me to prepare for and transition between tasks and environments. So at any rate, with that in mind, some of you might be familiar with the concept of if-then charts for behavior. Well, this slide is an if-then chart for the behavior of a piece of technology. On our first line, we have the example, if the time is 4 p.m., then turn the smart light bulb in my office to blue so that I know it's time to start wrapping up what I'm working on. It might be more effective environmental cue for me than just buzzing reminder on my phone or a slot of time on my calendar. Our second example is if my phone connects to the home Wi-Fi network. If it knows I'm home, then turn on my decompression playlist so that I can regulate and prepare for my next task. Our third example here is if I tap the NFC tag, maybe near my rice cooker, then show me a video of a cooking tutorial for my favorite meal. So here's an example of an evening routine that incorporates multiple ways of getting information, including those visual and auditory cues. In this routine, the trigger is being used as an NFC tag, which we'll talk more about in a moment. But so it says, when I am done with dinner, I go to my room and I tap the card on the nightstand. So the actions triggered by that are going to be a checklist of personal care tasks is displayed on my phone. So I've got a list for what to do for my nighttime routine. And then a time lighting sequence is going to be activated. So my lights are going to change color every 5 minutes until the end of my getting ready time when the lights will turn off. And that's helping me to have a more tangible understanding of the passage of time and how much time I have left. Then meanwhile, the third action being simultaneously triggered is that the voice assistant is going to tell me the weather forecast for tomorrow so that I can pick out my clothes. So that example was using an NFC tag, but it could have been done just as easily using a voice assistant in a smart home hub, saying something like, Alexa, start my evening routine. But the reason I mentioned NFC tags is because they offer the flexibility for more tasks for people who don't have a smart home hub maybe. And all of the examples on this next slide are automations that you could program without an Amazon Echo or a Google Hub or anything like that. They just use your phone and the tag. So the NFC, the near field communication tags, are a set of directions for your phone. If you have an iPhone, you can program these through the built-in app called Shortcuts. If you have an Android smartphone, then you'll need to download an NFC programming app. This is one arena in which an Android is potentially an advantage because you have more choices. With the iPhone, you have to use their Shortcuts app, and what that initial setup process looks like is shown here. So this screenshot shows someone setting up a shortcut for playing the radio with their morning coffee. And they want to be able to tap the tag in their kitchen and have it do the work of opening the correct app for them. So I see that it says, if the date is Saturday, then play BBC Radio. Otherwise, meaning on other days of the week, I want to listen to the first unplayed episode on my podcast station. So the NFC tag is taking on some of the physical and cognitive load of that task by being pre-programmed to run the right app on each day. Here are some examples of other things that an NFC tag could be programmed to do. It can add a specific line of text to a pre-existing note. So maybe that note is a medication log or a hydration log, and the text it's adding is the name of the item and a timestamp of what time you took it. Or maybe that existing note is a grocery list. And I've got an NFC tag over by my cat litter box, and I tap the tag to add cat litter onto my grocery list. Another example of an action that an NFC tag can do is activate a predetermined timer. So I know that the wash cycle on my laundry machine is 37 minutes long. So I can program an NFC tag that when I tap it, it'll automatically set a timer for 37 minutes. Another thing would be calling a designated contact or sending a pre-written text message. So a really obvious example for this one is when my mom always tells me, will you let me know when you get home? Will you text me to say that you've got home safe? And my answer to her is always, maybe, because I figure that way I haven't committed and she won't stress about it if I forget. I'm sure my mother would much rather I put an NFC tag by my doorway that I would tap with my phone and the phone would automatically send her a message that says, Caitlin got home safe, love you. So these are just some examples of actions that could be pre-programmed with a tag, but the sky is the limit. It's up to your imagination to decide what it is you need an automation to do for you. We've covered a lot of Wi-Fi connected devices today, a lot of how to use a smartphone in conjunction with other tools. And the reason for that is that this little segment of our Tech Accelerator series is meant to highlight technology that can be used remotely to support someone. So if it's based in an app, then your support people are able to help monitor it, helps assist with setting it up, making those schedules for you to follow from afar. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other organizational supports for people who don't own smartphones or don't have Wi-Fi access. So I do want to touch base on some of those examples. What are some standalone devices that can still give someone auditory or interactive components more than just a traditional paper calendar or a picture-based task list? The first category I have here is auditory labeling pens. So products like the Pen Friend or the Talking Label Wand are traditionally made for customers with low vision, but could be very meaningful supports for people with print-based learning disabilities or with other access needs. There's a picture of one of these on the bottom left corner. This is the Pen Friend, and it operates completely on its own. You use the pen both to record your voice and to play it back. So in this picture, someone has put a yellow tactile sticker on a medication bottle, and they've recorded a voice note saying what the medication is and what time of day they're supposed to take it. Other places this could be used would be in a kitchen, on an appliance, directions for a paper calendar to read out if there's a recurring routine that you want auditory cues for. There are also options for longer messages. So if you need to record a longer message, perhaps you want to read out the parts of a recipe or to give instructions for how to complete a load of laundry, then you could consider using the kind of smart pen that's designed for note-taking. These smart pens offer what's called positional replay of audio. So that means you can link the sound segment to specific keywords or specific icons in your written notes. It does require, though, that you use special paper. So some of these pens also might have a microphone accessory that's separate from the pen rather than built into the pen. But this could be a great option for someone who wants to have longer audio files that won't necessarily fit on a labeling pen. And then we have two more standalone non-Wi-Fi devices pictured here. And these are products that are marketed towards older adults with dementia. But again, anyone can use them. I only mention that to let you know what places you can look for these tools. So if you want auditory-based tools, be looking at the low vision store. Or if you want visual non-Wi-Fi based tasks, be looking at those dementia or Alzheimer's manufacturers, even if your own access needs are not specifically related to that. But in the top right corner here, we have a device called the Day Range Clock. So this is for a recurring schedule for someone whose daily tasks or daily schedule isn't going to change much because it's the written parts on this list don't change. You write it once, and then there are clickable tactile light up buttons running along the far right column there. So every morning at 8 a.m., this person has breakfast and presses the button to check off, okay, I had breakfast. Now the clock on the left there, that is an actual digital clock that the time changes on it, and there can be alerts that will come up, reminders. So if you have a reminder set for maybe 8 a.m., 12:30 and 6:30 looks like this person's meal times. So maybe you have an auditory beeping reminder and it will flash a little notice to complete the task at those times. Then below that, we have a product called the Reminder Rosie. This is, again, a completely independent non-Wi-Fi device that's you program right at the source. So you record your own voice speaking into the device, and then it will play back those auditory recordings at the designated times. So I had someone who really strongly preferred this device to having a smart home hub in their home because they did not like rings or beeps or other alarm tones, but they were okay with hearing their own voice or a caregiver's voice read instructions out to them. So this person used the reminder Rosie to remind them of their medication times and their meal times. And again, those can be programmed right into the device. It can be recurring reminders. It can be a one-time reminder for, oh, it's so-and-so's birthday today. It gives you lots of options. And this device is something also, the Pen Friend and the Reminder Rosie, that we have available to try from TechOwl's free lending library. Oh, here's an example of using audio tags for breakfast. So that pen labeling wand. Mary's Kitchen has those bright yellow textured stickers that she can tap with her handheld labeling wand. So she gets up in the morning, there's a sticker on the oatmeal container that tells her how much water to add to it and how long to put it in the microwave for. And then she's waiting for her microwave. She's got a sticker on the refrigerator she can tap to hear her morning affirmations while she waits. Then she's done eating. She wants to go do the dishes. There's a sticker on the dishwasher that she can listen to remind her where the detergent is stored and what setting she needs to turn the knob to turn on the dishwasher. So those are all reminders that she was able to get in an auditory format without any smartphone or Wi-Fi needed. The biggest step here in implementing technology solutions is identifying what the opportunities are for support in your life or in the life of a loved one or a client. So what tasks are other people organizing for you right now? Is there something that a support person currently coaches you through that you would like to be more independent with? Or what tasks are slipping through the cracks and not getting done at all? If anyone would like to share any examples of situations that have come to mind as we've spoken, ways that they could implement technology, please feel free to share those in the chat. At the earlier session today, we also had some great collaboration, some fantastic problem solving among participants in the chat. So feel free to share ideas. My example of an opportunity to implement supportive tools was forgetting to eat meals. So meal planning requires a lot of steps, from shopping to following directions, and then remembering to actually eat meals. And I have pretty poor interoception, which is a fancy way of saying that my brain doesn't always recognize when my body is hungry or hot or in pain. And I do have a couple trusted people that know to pop reminders to me. So to just send me a quick text if it's a particularly busy week that says, hey, have you eaten today? But equally often I come to the realization that I just feel bad. I feel dysregulated and I don't know why. So I do have a flowchart tool to use in those moments, and sometimes I forget it exists. So what would help me is a visual reminder. So one thing I could do is make myself a QR code attached to the specific emoji symbol that I personally use as a shorthand for those reminders. And then when I scan the code, it would bring up the interactive flowchart for me. So this increases the odds of me thinking about my body's needs, and it decreases access resistance by eliminating the step of me having to swipe open the chart in my phone or type in the URL. And this is definitely something I could use an NFC tag for, but the chart happens to be a web URL and QR codes are free. So that's kind of the reason I landed on that as being plan A. Incidentally, this chart is not something that I made, so y'all are welcome to also use it. I will share the URL for that in the follow-up email as well. What other ideas do we have? Love the idea of having the color of lights program to change when getting ready to go somewhere. Yes, to help you maintain awareness of that passage of time. Finding another person who also needs initial structure and doing it together would be a great experience with possible. Absolutely. All right, I also want to talk about ways that TechOwl can help. So TechOwl is a Pennsylvania program, as I had mentioned before, but a lot of these same services and programs are offered in other state ATACs. So if you go to that web link that I provided in the chat, you'll be able to find your state ATAC program and see which of these things they offer. But TechOwl is a great place to learn about and try new devices. So we do offer demonstrations. which can be in person in one of our 9 regional offices, or it can be virtual through Zoom or over a phone call to help you problem solve what might meet your needs. So talk about where it is you're having trouble or what your goals are, and we can suggest different tools for you to try out. And we do have a free lending library. So that is mailed straight to your home or to your workplace. Devices can be tried for 5 weeks, and just like borrowing a book from a regular public library, if there's not a wait list, we can usually offer an extension as well. And TechL staff are available for support with setting up, troubleshooting, or learning how to use these devices. Some examples of devices available from TechL that are relevant to our conversation today. That reminder Rosie, so that non-Wi-Fi reminder device that has voice notes, that's available from TechOwl. There's a wristband device called SafeWave that's now available from TechOwl. That one's new. And what this one is a vibrating wristband that coordinates with alerts from your smartphone. So it's made specifically for deaf audiences, but again, could be used by anyone. And you can program the vibration speed and frequency in order to indicate different alerts. So if there's a specific sound, if there's like a fire alarm alert or something, maybe that's a different frequency than your change tasks alert, or a different frequency than your incoming phone call alert. So the benefit of that SafeWave wristband is that you can make those vibrations, that tactile feedback, match the action that's needed to be taken. And then finally, smart home devices like the Echo Show. So if you do have Wi-Fi and you are interested in a connected device that a remote support person could help set up, the Echo Show or other Echo smart home hubs might be helpful for you. Library also has a lot of sensory regulation tools. We didn't talk as much about these today, but they're an important support for executive functioning as well. We have compression vests in all different sizes from children to adults. Same thing with headphones. We have all different sizes from children to adults. We have the little ones made for 12-month-olds, and we have the ones made for full-grown men. We also have lots of fidget tools, sensory tools, things like inflated balance cushions for dynamic seating supports, and reading and note-taking tools. So in this slide, we have a picture of a scanning stand that you could use to, for instance, read a recipe out loud to you, a digital recorder for voice notes, some of those smart pens that I had mentioned previously, or other reading devices. And finally, we are always open to suggestion. So if there's a new item that you would be interested in trying, you can go to our website and click the Suggest a New Library Item button. Some of the items that have come up recently of interest are things like the Plod Note audio note taker. So this is a wearable device that records the lecture, the meeting, the conversation around you, and transcribes it into your written notes. It also has an AI feature, an artificial intelligence feature, that would summarize those notes for you. Another device that has come up recently is the Skylight Calendar. So this is a app-based calendar that you can coordinate to-do lists and calendars for multiple people in your household, all in one physical framed device. So for instance, if you have some of the members of your household don't own a smartphone or a tablet, this could be a great way to still have everyone be on the same page. Right here is some contact information for how to reach TechOwl. I will bring that slide back up for anyone who needs it later as well. But first I want to pause and head over to the chat and see if we have questions or comments. If anyone would like to ask a question or make a comment out loud or through video, please feel free to raise your hand to do that as well. Some great conversation in the chat. Thank you, guys. I see that someone was experiencing some problems with the Lenny Library site. You know, that can sometimes be difficult to use, and especially if you're trying to use it on a mobile device, it's not super functional on mobile. So I would invite you also, if you are ever frustrated with that website, please feel free to call us or email us. We'd be happy to take your order in a different format and make sure that you get your devices sent out to you still. All right, well, if no one has other questions or examples they wanted to talk about, I will give you an opportunity to complete the presentation survey. So this gives us information about who is able to access and benefit from our programs, and what topics people might want to hear more about.